Hey class, for this week's discussion, I chose to read Mark A. Knowles' 2002 America's God from Jonathan Edwards to Abraham Lincoln, Chapter 5. Essentially, the book shows an overall transition from Calvinist theology that we saw in the 1700s as it morphed into a more distinct, more individualistic form of religious identity that we know as Christian republicanism. The chapters divide into 8 categories that basically show the transition or identify the rise of republicanism. And basically, what it shows is the famous sermons of the Great Awakening that we saw. People like Jonathan Edwards that gave sermons and kind of the impact that those words had at that time were no longer emphasized as a guiding ideology of the time. So this new republicanism identified kind of liberty, individual ideas, individual morals, and a sense of a common goal. Basically, at the time, to achieve freedom from England. This was kind of the new wave, the new idea. No longer did you need clergymen to inform you how you should interpret the Bible or God's Word, but you had more of a moral net to cast for your own journey through life. Individual accountability, things like this. So, things came of this that were both positive and negative, as every transition in history causes different ripple effects. So one thing was people became hyper obsessed or focused in on the idea that the American experiment was backed by God himself, that he was focused in on the mission of the colonists who had now joined together as individual states, working towards a common goal. They felt this was perhaps backed directly by God and that it was a divine mission the colonists were on. Another area that came out of it that, as we would learn over the 80 to 100 years following this, was beliefs that would lead into the Civil War, specifically around slavery. With the individual ideas and thinking, individual people began picking sides on topics of morality, ideas like that. One quote that I had in the reading that I found interesting, that kind of shows directly a side chosen, was by a guy named Jacob Green. He stated, "It is demonstrable that slaveholders are friends to slavery, ergo are enemies to liberty, ergo are enemies to our present struggle for liberty, ergo are enemies to these United States. These slavish slaveholders will watch for an opportunity to establish slavery and bondage in the United States. Ergo, they will, and they have the opportunity to join with our enemies who are attempting the same thing. Slaveholders are Tories of the worst sort." So again, I don't disagree that slaveholders are terrible people. This was just an example I found that showed a new divide amongst people, which we all know would lead eventually to the Civil War happening over the state's individual rights over slavery. So I just thought that demonstrated a good idea, that the individual thinking then showed people immediately picking sides on other topics once the ideas of liberty were settled, and that was the direction of America. Thank you, and have a good week.